So I was the only guy in my showing of this movie, and it only has a 14% on Rotten Tomatoes. So you'd think I was going to hate this movie? I actually kind of liked it. So The Space Between Us tells the story of the first boy ever born on Mars. His existence is kept a secret, and he's raised by a whole bunch of scientists, and he forms kind of a pen-pal relationship with a girl back on Earth. Eventually, when he's allowed to return to Earth, hijinks ensue, and we have a movie. Now, while I enjoyed this movie, it's a little bit difficult to summarize because it switches genres like every 20 minutes. So the first 10 or so minutes of the movie is a serious sci-fi drama about the ethical dilemma of what do you do with a child born on Mars in secret. From there, it shifts to a story about an angsty teenage boy that's awkward and wants to connect with his peers while being on Mars, and he has no peers and he's being raised by scientists. So he's connecting with a girl, kind of like a pen pal over Google Hangouts, and unable to tell her the truth about what's going on. From there, it turns into a road trip movie, kind of like the movie Twins. Like, it's a comedy, a fish out of water type stuff suddenly, and then the last third of the movie shifts and it's like melodrama and it's dramatic. And with this story I just told to you, there's like a plane chase in the middle of it with a big explosion. So the movie's all over the place, and any one of these pieces in and of itself I thought was actually pretty good and works as a thing that stands alone, mixed together, kind of a mixed bag as to how it works. And I think if it had picked any one of these plots, it would have been a better movie than the one that we got. So if you took that serious sci-fi dilemma story about what do you do with a child born in secret on Mars that's best for the child, best for the mission, in balancing all these topics, there's a lot of great and interesting concepts in the idea that presented it in the first 15 minutes. And then it shifts into a movie where I was like, this is weird that they took this great premise and they're turning it into this movie that we're making right now. And it was kind of like with the Purge movie. So they have this great concept where, hey, what if there was 12 hours where you could commit any crime? Then you watch the Purge movie, and it's set at a house. It's a home invasion story. And so if you're talking about a concept of what would you do, what story would you tell with The Purge, a home invasion story is one of the stupidest stories to tell because you can tell a home invasion story in any context, and so it's a total waste of this big concept. And that's what the second little batch of this movie felt like, where you're going, why are we talking about two teenagers being pen pals and struggling to fit in? You can tell that story in any context, and so it was kind of weird that we took a great concept and then we went to this weird direction with it. From there, it shifts again to a road trip movie, and the big chunk of the movie is this road trip story that's like the movie Twins. And my thought as I was watching that part, I was like, this works in and of itself. And so essentially, when that part of the story starts going, I was thinking, why didn't they just summarize the first 40 minutes of this movie in like a 5-minute montage and then go straight to the fish out of water story that we're telling right now? Because in and of itself, this story has a tone that works, and it's funny and it's kind of charming, and this 16-year-old, or the character's 16, the actor's like 19, but he actually looks like an awkward 16, where it's Asa Butterfield, Butterfield, I don't remember what his name is, but he actually looks like an awkward, tall, lanky 16-year-old. For one of the few times ever in a movie, there's a 16-year-old that's supposed to look awkward, and you look at him and he's just like weird, overly long with dangling arms and clothes that don't fit. And I was like, yes, that looks like the majority of tall, awkward 16-year-olds I actually see in real life. He doesn't look like a 26-year-old man pretending like he's still in high schooler, which the lead girl in it actually is a 26-year-old that as you're watching it, you can tell that she's not actually a high schooler in times. But so anyway, you got this middle part that's like a fish out of water story that works in and of itself, that if you cut off that first part, that I really like the first beginning part of it, but they're like two different movies. The first section has no jokes, and then we go to fish out of water comedy that's like all jokes. And then we get to the end of the movie, and it's probably the weakest part of the movie because it suddenly shifts away from comedy, away from big sci-fi ethical dilemma stuff, and switches to pure sentimentality and melodrama. So what do I make of all this? Here's the deal. I really enjoyed the movie. As I was watching it, each section, for the most part, there's a couple that were weaker than others, but beginning, I really liked the first 15 minutes, and then I started to lose interest a little bit, and I was like, ooh, where are they going with this? And then as soon as it became the fish out of water movie, I really liked the movie again, and I really enjoyed that chunk of the movie until we got a little bit weak for a little bit, transitioning into the third act, and then it picked back up, and I was like, all right, these twists, turns, reveals, the resolution to the issues of the movie, for the most part, were satisfactory. There's a few that they leave dangling a little bit too much, and there could have been a couple of additional things that I think would have made things work a little bit better, but overall, it has a satisfactory conclusion to it, and I enjoyed the ride. Like I said, it's kind of a really uneven movie. It's got a bunch of issues. There's definitely plot holes all over the place, and there's some stuff that they do early in the movie that you're going, it would have made a lot more sense if you'd done this and this and this, and it starts to tie together in the third act, and you understand why they did what they did, and it kind of ties together in a nice, neat bow. Makes more sense. But as I said, if it had been any one of if it had just been the road trip movie, that would have been better. If it had just been our sci-fi drama with ethical dilemmas, that would have been a better movie. Or if it had just been melodrama throughout, that would have been a better movie. But overall, it's still an enjoyable ride that me, as a 35-year-old man that is not the target demographic, I enjoyed this movie a good bit more than most movies I've seen recently. I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. If you see the trailer and you're intrigued by it, or if you're like kind of these YA, sappy romance stories with kind of a gimmick plot idea to them, this one has a better idea behind it, and the adventure going along with these characters is a lot of fun. Overall, it's a good ride. If I'm being honest, I enjoyed the movie way more than I want to admit that I did. I wouldn't, like, if my wife was like, all right, I'll go see it, I'd go see this movie again in the theater. I mean, it was a fun, enjoyable ride. If you go see this at matinee price, you will not be disappointed. But that's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on it? Do you have any interest in going to go see this movie, or have you seen it? What's your take on it? Tell me what you think about it, because I don't want to just talk about movies. I want to talk about movies with you. Let's have a great discussion down below. If you're new to my channel, you never click that subscribe button, please consider clicking that subscribe button. I do 3 or 4 movie reviews a week. I've got a live show on Sundays where I've got a chat board, interact back and forth with you, as well as a show during the work week where I do a movie news roundup, talk about whatever happened over the last 24 hours in the world of movie news. Because I don't want to just talk about movies, I want to talk about movies with you, and thank you for watching.